Welcome! In today's video, we're going to talk about how you can begin decluttering when you're not sure where to start, and the reasons you might want to be living a more simplified life, as well as tips and tricks to make this an actionable thing you can start today. If you're anything like me, you might have acquired quite a few possessions in life, and it's not until you begin going through them you realize you have way too much stuff, and you want to live a simpler way. Let's go ahead and start with remembering your why. Take a pen and paper, go ahead and write down your core values. This might seem daunting, but I promise this simple exercise will give you a clear idea of the reason you decide to declutter in the first place. Now, when I began to do this myself, I realized the things that I wanted to spend time on did not match up with the amount of energy it had taken me to look through the items, to maintain the items, to constantly clean the items and shuffle them from room to room, trying to find space in every nook and cranny available just so that things looked clean. And I felt the weight of this in my everyday life. This realization brought on a lot of changes, and it's taken us some time to get to the spot that we are today. So hopefully these tips that I'm about to share with you will help you get out of a similar situation and start living for now and living for the life that you want, rather than all the excess that seems to accumulate over time that weighs you down. So we're going to go ahead and look at something that's pretty basic. Even if you've never done any hardcore organization, you might do this automatically, but it's pretty common other places. That is the keep, donate, and trash method. This is the fundamental base for any organizational system, from KonMari to Snowball to Dana K. White's method to Swedish death cleaning. All of these groups tend to use a version of the keep, donate, or trash. In fact, most people who clean tend to implement this automatically without even realizing they're doing it. I've found that the biggest struggle typically lies in the 3 S's when you begin organizing the things that you own. And those are someday items, sentimental items, and security items. So let's go ahead and talk about why it's hard to get rid of some things when other times it's easy to give things up. Our material objects tend to be very personal, and we can get stuck in this trap of the 3 S's. For example, the someday items are the items that we think that we're going to need someday, that we have these aspirations for, these dreams for. And dreams and goals and aspirations are not inherently bad. Like, someday I'd like to fit into those jeans again. That's not a bad goal, but if you don't have any steps in place to reach that goal, you're going to be carrying around that pair of jeans from 4 moves and different weight fluctuations. And it could not be jeans, it could be any object in your home that you have a plan for someday. Someday I'm going to need 3 cake liners, or someday I'm going to need all of these objects. It's fine as long as you have actionable items to reach those goals in order to justify keeping those objects, rather than having this reminder of things that you haven't done yet, because that can be just as defeating. The next S tends to be one of the harder ones, and that is sentimental. Now, again, we talked about this. Objects are personal. We keep them for a reason. It's easy to fall into the trap of putting sentimental and emotional meaning behind almost everything that we own. So if you can take a step back and look at the reason you want to hold on to those items and make a game plan for keeping the sentiment without keeping the physical item, it can really help you make decisions quickly. For example, if someone's gifted you something, which is very sweet, very kind, it's the spirit of the gift that you're thankful for, and perhaps the physical item not so much, doesn't serve you, doesn't serve your life. If that person who gifted you this item was right next to you, and they saw that it was causing you stress or grief, frustration, or even irritation, you know that they would put their hand on your shoulder and say, "Hey, I thought of you, I got you this gift because I love you. I didn't mean to cause you any of this negative feeling. You can get rid of that item. It's not going to hurt my feelings. It's your life. I love you. I was representing that love with an object." And that kind of helps put things into perspective. If you're not ready to give up the item, but you also want to keep the sentiment behind it, a good example would be, I have a lot of t-shirts from concerts, from gifts from people, but they were taking up so much space in my closet, but I could not part with them. The sentiment was way too strong. I decided to turn them into a t-shirt quilt. This became an item I use all the time. It's got great utility to it. It can be folded and tucked away, and my closet is no longer bursting with t-shirts that I never wore. There are lots of little ways where you can take a sentimental item and turn it into something great. For example, if you were gifted something from someone who passed, but the object doesn't serve you, you can take a photo of that item. You can journal about the feelings that item gives you. You could do some sort of dedication, turn it into art. You could pass it along to a different family member who is going to maybe get more use out of it. Sentimental items are hard, but if you take a little bit of forethought, you can think of creative ways to honor the gift, the spirit of the item itself. The third S, security, tends to be one of the easier ones to get through as you're discussing an item in your own head, whether or not to keep it. So we feel a secure attachment to something. What if we can't get more of it? What if it ruins something by not having it there? What if we need it right when we get rid of it? You have to remind yourself that we live in a very material world, and the chances of you being interested in a similar product or the next greatest thing are pretty high. It's a pretty good chance that you're going to run into something you want to purchase again. That thought of more stuff, although you work through it, is never going to completely go away. So being very mindful of your purchases will also help you get through this security S that we tend to struggle with. Now, it could be that as you go through and declutter, you find that some of those S's are harder for you than others, and that's okay. You're going to shoot for progress over perfection. You probably won't get through your whole house in one entire day and have everything exactly the way you want it. That's just not realistic. So be kind to yourself, be compassionate with yourself as you're going through this journey, and just do a little by little the best you can as you start to develop those habits of paying more attention to what comes into the house, balancing what goes out of the home, trying to think of what's actually serving you in this phase of your life, in this time with both yourself, your family, the world around you, your job. All of those things take part of why we keep the things that we do. So deciding to become more simplified takes time and it takes effort. So kudos to you for even beginning this journey. Those are just a few examples of where to start when you're beginning your decluttering journey, and hopefully you found them helpful. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and hear me talk about some of the experiences I've had. If you have similar experiences or maybe completely opposite, I would love to hear it. I love watching these type of videos, which is why I decided to finally make one. Hopefully you'll hear more about it in the next one, so I'll talk to you later.